Welcome back to the Tiga Tactics Podcast, show about self-defense for civilians by civilians. We discuss all things personal protection, including martial arts, combat sports, and street combatives. Our resident MANs, martial arts nerds, include co-founder of Tiga Tactics and holder of black belts in 9 different styles, Dr. Conrad Bui.
Hello, everyone.
We also have black belt holder in 4 different styles, and the other co-founder, our special guest, Patrick Vuong.
Who's this guy, Evan? See again?
Yes. It has been a while since I've been on the podcast. I apologize for just having a crazy life right now in the last 3 months. But it's awesome to be back. I miss you guys, and I'm ready to rock.
Yeah, we did get a podcast with just me and you, Patrick, but we've missed a triple. I feel like it's been, I don't know, the whole year.
Yeah,
it's been
a long time.
Yeah. All right, I am your other co-host, retired Army Special Forces soldier, champion obstacle course racing athlete, Evan Ultra-OCR man, Perperis. Today we're going to be talking about empty hand versus knife, a hot topic. Anytime you get a bunch of martial artists in the room, especially FMA dudes, it is a hot point of contention on what's the best method for dealing with empty hand versus knife. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about some training knives, specifically ones from Vulpes and some of their other products. Patrick, what did you get this year from Vulpes?
Well, Vulpes hooked me up with all kinds of good stuff, but today I'll focus on the Tanto, the tactical Tanto. It is a really cool replica of for those of you who don't do Japanese martial arts, a Tanto is basically a long knife, or you call it a dagger, or a very, very short sword, but used by the samurai, often used by my understanding. Conrad could correct me, but my understanding is a lot of the female samurai, because the samurai is a class, and so there are men and women and children. The women often carry the Tanto in their clothing, and they can fight too. So this was a cool training tool to get from Vulpes. It looks exactly like the real thing. The handle's hand wrapped, very sturdy grip, and I've been having a lot of fun messing around with it.
Very cool. Love their stuff. Go check them out, vulpestraining.com. Links down in the show notes down below. Please check them out, explore their site, and support them if you're in need of new training knives or just fun stuff for cosplay.
Yeah, right, sorry about that. Check out our videos as well too, of Evan, myself, Guru Scott, playing around with them.
Oh yeah, I think they're on mine and yours pages.
Right.
So on our Instagram reels. Okay, let's jump into today's episode. Today we're talking about empty hand versus knife. So I guess the first question, before we get into how to deal with it, is what do knife attacks look like? And how do we know what knife attack looks like? Yeah, who wants to start?
All right, well, I'll jump in. I think as a martial artist with a martial arts background, there was a lot of myths as to how knife attacks looked, because the instructors, the masters of old, they didn't have access to surveillance footage, YouTube videos. And so I think sometimes they either drew their conclusions from isolated observations or even personal experience, but that's a very small sampling. And then there's theories and techniques and strategies that evolved from that limited amount of data. And so when I was training in many martial arts schools, and Evan, you just talked about this in your Medusa class, martial artists, we often stab once and then we just hold it out and let our friend or our partner kind of go to town on us. And that's not how it happens. But I get it. It's a solid start to say, hey, let's go easy, just stab the butts, hold it out there, let me do some things to you. But then that becomes part of what people think is like a realistic attack. And so what happened when I trained Sealot or I trained Kali would be, okay, they'll stab, hold it out, slowly. Then they'll stab, hold it out, and they'll stab a little faster. Then they stab a little faster, but they'll just hold it out. And then they stab full speed, and then they'll hold it out for you. So that is what usually happens in martial arts schools or seminars, and that's how you kind of train in that environment there. So, and of course, we know stabs are very repetitive motions. There's nothing fancy about them. They're fast. They're violent. They're aggressive. Then there likely will be some surprise because a lot of times us as good citizens, we're the victims, and we're behind the curve because that's just how criminals attack. They like to ambush you, and so it's going to be fast. It's going to be repetitive. It's going to be violent, and it can be very forceful as well too.
So how did we figure? I think you kind of mentioned it already, but how did you determine that's what actual knife violence looks like?
Patrick.
Yeah, both of us, Connor and I, we both did a lot of research, and fortunately, in this day and age, almost everything's online. And we started. Well, I mean, I can't speak for Conrad. I know he started probably earlier than I did, but I know that around 2005, that's when YouTube came on board, and also World Star Hip Hop. And if you guys don't know World Star Hip Hop, that's where everybody just uploaded pure violence onto the internet. They used that website to share all kinds of nasty videos of people getting killed, beaten up, jumped, and we both independently, this was like years before Tiga came along, we both independently did a lot of research, and you watch enough of these and you start to see the patterns, and it's very clear that everything that Conrad said, that's exactly what happens. It's always an ambush. It's always within 6 feet. I'd actually say within 3 feet, because a lot of times they want to conceal the fact that they have the weapon. And so they'll get very close to you before they actually draw and stab. If it's like a kind of like a mutual combat situation, then they'll start empty-handed, and then they'll secretly draw the knife and then stab somebody. But again, that's within usually 5-6 feet. But if we're talking pure ambush, yeah, they're already within 3 feet because the victim doesn't know that they have a knife. And I think that's one of the big misnomers among martial artists and gun enthusiasts is like, oh, well, that guy's got a knife. I got a gun. Never bring a knife to a gunfight, Well, sure, yeah, you've got a gun, but is your draw faster than their stab? Maybe it is, but then in that case, you both die. So you get stabbed in a vital area and you shoot him and he dies instantly. You'll die later in the ambulance. So, but yeah, that's just tons of research. Between the two of us, we've probably watched hundreds of stabbings, possibly even more than 1,000. It's pretty gruesome, but that's really the only way to learn and to defend yourself. You got to know how criminals attack on the street.
Yeah, I remember. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's some knife systems that use the phrase knives are meant to be felt and not seen. Specifically like ambush type systems or methodologies, if you read some of like the criminals culture type stuff where it's, knives are meant to be felt, not seen. So it's not always presented in a threatening manner first, or it's a lot of times it's an ambush. Jump in, Conrad.
Yeah, I remember when I first started watching the videos, it was pretty sickening. And I think if any martial artist or anybody that is interested in knife defense and how knife attacks happen, you've just got to watch those videos, because one, you'll start to, like what Patrick said, pick up the patterns of how knife attacks happen, and then two, you condition your mindset to understanding, oh, this is how it happens. It happens fast. It's violent. It's a surprise, and so that already gets people started on their journey. I remember watching those like just video after video, because to me, I was like, wow, this is a new tool. This is kind of cool here. And so when I was doing my research, my wife would walk in and she would say, what, you're watching this again? This is so sickening. But it is sickening. And so if any of our listeners are into defending themselves against a blade, seriously, do some of your own research. Luckily, there's people that shared their research out there, we all basically came to very similar conclusions, very repetitive type of motions. It's fast, it's violent. Sometimes there's some grabbing involved as well too with their offhand, but it comes in fast and quick.
Yeah, if you not only I would say that's a good idea if you're want to defend yourself against a knife, but if you're someone who carries a knife as a means of self-defense and you haven't watched like knife attack videos, like you probably should because you need to know what it like how horrific it is, what it actually looks like because you have to understand like if I have to defend my life, that's what I'm going to have to do to someone else as a method of self-defense, right? So even you need to understand what realism is if you're gonna again whether carry firearm, knife, whatever it is for self-defense, right? Like you need that understanding because that's what you're gonna have to. That's the psychological trauma that you're gonna have to deal with afterwards, even if you're successful in defending yourself.
I would jump in here real quick and say that I've seen to your point, Evan, I've seen some videos, not with a knife so much, but you know, people with concealed carry guns, they're trying to protect their family. They draw their gun, but they can't pull the trigger. And so they're trying to fight against the bad guy with their support hand because he's, trying to kidnap his wife or carjack their vehicle and their kids are inside. And the gun owner just can't pull the trigger because they just haven't crossed that barrier. They just don't understand. They kind of freeze up. And I think it's a good point, Evan, that you made that you should watch these videos so you understand and recognize what the situation would be like so that you can act appropriately.
Well, the first Tiga Tactics seminar I went to, it was a knife seminar, and you had asked, you or Conrad, I can't remember, it was like, who here carries a knife for self-defense? And I was like, well, obviously everyone, because we're in a knife seminar. And it was only like about 50% of the people. And I was like shocked. I was like, oh, that's really odd. And I remember going around the room and you guys asking like, well, why, why do, or why you do it? Why don't you? And some of the people were like, well, I have a short temper. I just don't want to like accidentally pull it out at a time I don't need it. Or some people maybe were concerned about being able to retain it if they had to defend themselves. And there were some other people that were like, oh, like psychologically, I don't think I could use it on someone. And as a soldier, as someone who had been in the military at that point, 15 years, it was so foreign to me. I was like, oh, people have an aversion to killing people. It was just like, it was so weird to me. Just, I'd been surrounded by people for the last 15 years where it was like, oh yeah, this is like, we had crossed that hurdle so far ago. I forgot it was like even a hurdle, to be honest with you. It's very interesting. Yeah. All right. So what did you look at other systems when you were creating the Tiga Tactics knife defense? Did you start by looking at other systems, trying to figure out what they were doing, and then kind of like piecemealing portions, or like how did this process develop? Once you kind of figured out, well, this is the way bad guys actually attack, which is covered in the knife defense course that you talk specifically about the way they attack.
Right. And so once we figured out what the problem was, now we could go to work on the proper solution. And so, yeah, you mentioned my black belts. I have instructor certification in bladed systems that are known for knife attack as well as knife defense. So definitely looked heavily into my Filipino martial arts background, heavily into my silat background as well too, because silat's a very bladed art as well too. So definitely drew upon that, and also I drew upon training methods and the pressure and resistance of Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Some of the more modern approach to training as well too. So we pulled all that in and tried many different techniques and different methods to defend yourself against an unscripted blade attack. And so, yeah, I went to the gym, had my students attack me, and a lot of the stuff just kind of fell apart. It was like, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work. Let's put that aside for now. I never threw anything out because you never know. Maybe I wasn't skilled enough, or my attacker was attacking in a way that wasn't really what we see on CCTV. But so I just put it aside. And so we put it aside, and it just kept trying and trying and trying, and out came the Tiga tactics. I think. Let's see. There were some aspects I took in from the Dog Brothers. They had some like ways to control the hand and things like that as well too. That I think it wasn't just their conclusion, but many people's conclusion that and this is where the PRO method came into play.
Real
And I
quick,
see.
for our listeners who may not know, explain who the Dog Brothers are.
Oh yeah, they're a group of Filipino martial artists that go full contact and a limited padding. So they'll use rattan sticks or even hardwood sticks, and they might have a baseball glove, something that's not, and maybe a fencing mask, and then they would just go at it full contact. And I think
Videos online of them going no padding, full contact with rattan sticks. And they do like quote unquote tournaments, but there's no prizes, and it's just to learn and have fun and hurt each other.
Yeah. They were pretty revolutionary back in the late 80s, early 90s, because they put their stuff to the test, and you could see like, oh, okay, they go against other FMA people, and you would see the what's effective between one system and the other, and then you can study that and learn from that, and or maybe some people just studied that and didn't want to learn from it. I don't know. I was watching their stuff when I was younger, and it was cool. They would do rattan sticks against a bokan, which is a wooden samurai sword. We were kind of scared of that because that guy knew how to thrust with that bokan. And so this guy's dangerous. They went against a whip as well too. Some pretty cool footage if you can find it online. But yeah, this was back in the late 80s, early 90s, and so that back in those days it was revolutionary going full contact with those things. So yeah, pretty a badass group. They're still around.
Yeah, pretty funny side note. They tried to get involved with like UFC in the early days, and they were the UFC was basically like, this is too extreme for us. So they have their UFC's response saved and like uploaded to their website. It's kind of amusing.
That's hilarious.
Like people aren't ready for this. This is too extreme. Back in '93, UFC was considered like people like human cockfighting. Like senators were trying to get it banned and stuff like that. So pretty funny side note. Go for it, Conrad. Go for it.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah. So we took those techniques into the gym. You know, what worked stuck, and so out from that came more of a formula than a technique. But yet we needed a way to teach the method to people, especially people who have never trained martial arts before. And so we teach a method, if you will, like a technique. And yet we still have an overriding concept or principle behind the technique, which is our PRO method. And so P stands for protect yourself, put a barrier between you and that weapon. In other words, if you got stabbed once by surprise, try not to get stabbed a second or third or fourth time. And then, so put a barrier between there. And that could be your hand. That could be a book. That could be a desk. That could be whatever that barrier is. So a lot of times, like what Patrick was saying, it's under 3 feet. So the only thing you got is your hand. You don't have your gun. And so that's Patrick mentioned that as well too. That's a myth. I'll just shoot him. No, you're way behind the curve already. You better protect yourself. You start digging for your firearm, and you're stabbed like 5 times before you can get that thing out. So P, protect yourself. So whatever you want to use, stop that weapon from doing further harm. Reposition yourself and restrain the weapon. So that R there stands for restrain, reposition yourself to a better position. I got this out of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We often say position before submission. So in other words, try to control the attacker before you submit him. And so reposition, restrain that weapon, and then go on the offense. So sometimes there's like a technique, like typical Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do, you block and you eye jab or something like that. But yet I haven't controlled that weapon. So if I hit with the eye jab, terrific. Maybe they go, I can't see now, and they back off. But if I miss with that eye jab, they're still just trying to stab me. And so the offense, it's a higher percentage to be able to control that weapon before we go on the offense. Patrick, you want to add anything to that?
No, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Obviously, this is it's your brainchild, and the cool thing for those of you who haven't trained with us in person is, and you might not know us very well, is that Conrad and I are cousins, and so I got a kind of like a behind the scenes view of how this program started, and I got to see it evolve, and it was really really cool. But as a martial artist, like the thing that I love the most, and that's why I'm so privileged to do this with Conrad, is what he's able to do is take what I was already doing, but tweak it, and then suddenly it's so much more effective. And so that's where that's a huge part of Tiga tactics, is taking things from other martial arts and just tweaking it just a little bit. So we're not saying like, oh, our way's the only way. To be honest, you could take your martial art and insert it into our platform, which is basically the PRO, and the way that we train and our methodology, and it would make your martial art even better. And so with our knife defense, that's basically what happened with me when he was showing me the behind the scenes stuff. Because I had, knife defense from Capoeira Karate, knife defense from Kung Fu, knife defense from the Kali I was doing. But then when Conrad kind of unveiled Tiga Tactics to me, I was like, oh, wow. It just became, everything just funneled very nicely into a very realistic methodology.
One of the
Yeah,
things
and I want to add on to that what we try to do is stay gross motor skills, because I found that complicated disarms and trying to use my fingers and grips, it doesn't work very well when someone's really trying to stab you. And so we stayed with gross motor skill. I think sometimes in the dojo, it's kind of cool to come up with sophisticated stuff, like cool looking John Wick stuff, and it's cool. I think it's totally cool. I do that myself. Like, oh, maybe we could bring the arm here. Maybe we could bring the knife here. Oh, we use the knife to stab them with their own knife. Those are totally cool and they're totally fun. And yet at the same time, it can lead us down the wrong path. So, we want to use gross motor skills and stay away from things that require a lot of fine motor skills, which a lot of systems teach. Kung Fu, Silat, Kali. But again, I still train those. I just know that that's more for my personal development, my personal growth, than for something that I would use in a street confrontation.
I was going to say with empty hand versus knife, it's all about increasing probability for success. So I think sometimes people are like, well, is this 100% going to save me? It's like, well, not 100%. Like nothing's 100%.
Right.
Like we're about increasing probability and increasing likelihood of getting out of that situation alive. When I was me and Phil Elmore did a whole bunch of webinars with knife attacks. So I looked at 100 different razor blade attacks, and I looked at 50 different knife attacks for a different webinar. And then I've watched a whole bunch of videos, and what I saw was obviously a lot of the mindset stuff we've talked about as the pyramid of personal protection on Tiga Tactics will prevent the situation from occurring in the first place. So like that's where making good decisions, being kind by choice, stay alert, stay humble, stay kind. All those other catchphrases we've gone over in all the other episodes are all good advice. And the other one was you need a plan. You need to be able to. It needs to be executed violently, and you need to fight back. Some of the knife attacks that I've watched, when it's not something personal, it's like a random dude running around with a knife. Like when you start putting up a fight, a lot of times they'll be like, "Nah, I'll find someone else to stab. This one's too much trouble," and they'll continue moving. So you need a system, and I think part of the problem is with some knife stuff is there's just too many choices. We've talked about Hick's law on this podcast before. If you don't have a plan that you like, this is going to be my go-to, I'm going to execute it violently, I think you're in trouble. And I think that's personally, I found that Tiga Tactics has the best model that I've seen for empty hand versus knife. And I've spent fair amount of time deep diving the weird corners of the knife world. So
I also want to mention so the technique that we teach at our seminars, that is just a method expressing our overall arching theory of PRO. So, is it the best technique? It's a high percentage technique, and yet if you need to diverge or do something different than that technique, sticking with the PRO strategy or tactic, it'll still work. So people don't have to stick with our technique, but using the PRO method will give them a good framework to use. And also, I think another thing that makes us unique is our progressive training. So back in the day, like we would train, and so it would be either I'd say 30-40%, and then ramped up to 100%. So we would just train, let's say a knife attack. And then when it got down to it, we'd go from that 30-40% speed to 100. Now they're just stabbing you. And of course, the technique falls apart completely. And then you're wondering why. And I was at the seminar one time, and there was this teacher, and he was like, okay, well, a lot of these martial arts techniques don't work. So he called people up who were like skilled martial artists, and he had a knife, and he says, here, stop my knife attack. And he just went at him, and okay, so none of them got out without getting cut. And me included too back then. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, our stuff doesn't work against this kind of attack. Okay, great. He'll show us something that will work. And he never showed us anything. Just this whole thing was like basically, your martial arts stuff don't work, but I don't have a solution either. It's not, well, that's a seminar, but it did open my eyes to like, I think I need to find out some higher percentage things that I'm comfortable using.
yeah, we were like Conrad mentioned. I was just on a call right before this, teaching Medusa edge weapon system, and I joked on there. I was like, if you want to see a martial artist argue, you put them in a room and tell them to tell you what's the best empty hand versus knife technique, and the FMA dudes will literally go to war over who is the best technique. So
very true, very true. I think
right, and also I think with our background, we were able to look at different training methods from different arts and be able to put that all into Tiga tactics. So some people poo-poo Tai Chi would never work. Yeah, sure. I mean, no one's gonna get out of a fight alive, moving slow motion. I mean, duh. But we have a process where we go slow, and when we go slow, it's just a great warm up. It's also a great way to try to work on your technique, try to use full body mechanics. Because if you just start striking fast, it's hard to get that coordination. And so we pulled from Tai Chi. So we often have our group warm up really slow with our toolbox, maybe palm strikes or knees, warm up, take your time, really focus on the body mechanics, focus on targeting as well to visualization. We have solo training. So there's many different methods from different arts. I took stuff from Taekwondo. I took stuff from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I took stuff from Muay Thai, the training methods, not necessarily their techniques. So we utilize solo training, then we utilize partner training, we utilize pad work training, from focus mitts to tie pads, sometimes the kicking shield, and we introduce these in a progressive way that where we've had students that were, gosh, I don't want to use this word, but even pacifist students come in and who didn't like anything to do with violence, and at the end of the seminar, it's hard to tell who was a 20-year master versus that person. So I think that's what makes us our program somewhat unique, is that progressive training method from solo, slow, all the way up to full resistance and everything in between.
yeah, real quick story of So I learned the method from you guys. Obviously, took the online course, did the in-person training, tested for being an instructor, right? So I went through the progression there of like training it, but I was like, well, this is a pretty good defense. Maybe, maybe it's the best, maybe it's not. And I was like, I wasn't like 100% sold on it, honestly, originally. And during the Modern Army Combatives course, we did a block of knife instruction, or empty hand versus knife. And they went over a couple of different techniques, and one of them kind of looked like Tiga tactics. And then they taught some of the other ones, like, where like you basically just hit the hand and the knife goes flying out of his hand, and some other ones that I was like, I don't really like any of these. And then we had a small class, about 12 students. We broke into two groups of six, and we circled up, and they gave one person a shock knife, and they essentially put you in a ring, and they're like, all right, disarm the other dude. And so one guy's got a shock knife, one guy's empty handed, and like we start going at each other, trying to disarm the person with the shock knife. It was pretty interesting to watch. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, I'm going to use the Tiga Tactics method, like straight up. I'm not going to use what the Army taught me. I'm just going to straight up use Tiga Tactics and see if it works. And it worked. Like out of the three, I think I did the exercise 4 times. I think 2 or 3 of them, I didn't get shocked at all. And then like the other 1 or 2, I got shocked like 1 or 2 times, which was low because there were some dudes who were just getting eaten up. And we were going hard too. Like one person in our group broke their ankle with their hand or their ankle. I think they broke something. I
Wow.
think like while they were struggling over the knife, they were like falling and like rolling. So like it's not like we were going easy. We were going pretty hard. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm sold on this now. I'm like, I always keep my ears open, right? Because you can never, maybe something better will come up in the future.
Mhm.
But I was like, I like this as my primary, plan A for a free swinging blade. So
Yeah, nothing is 100% like you mentioned. And you said that you weren't quite sold on it at the beginning. For me, I'm still not sold on it. Yeah, if something better comes along, I'll hop on board as well too.
yeah, I I agree. And then there's some other good. We've talked about them on this podcast, but there's other good knife systems. I think the other knife systems, some of the ones we've talked about, Shivworks and Casey, I think they actually deal with a different problem. They deal with I'm already in the clinch, and how do I deal with a knife? I think those are great systems for dealing with that. I like Tiga Tactics for a free swinging blade, and I'm like yeah. So
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
last kind of comment I want to make is as I've again, just like you, I keep my ears open, I keep my eyes open, and I explore other bladed systems, empty hand versus knife, just to see what they're teaching and to figure out like, oh, maybe there's a better technique here. The one if anyone's in like a similar path and they're exploring similar stuff, the one caveat I'll say is when bad guys attack, it's always reciprocating, right? So it goes in and it comes right back out. It goes in and comes right back out, right?
Hmm.
So if you don't have if you don't have some sort of wide net to catch that knife like the stop the arm or the hand or the knife coming in, you need some sort of wide net to catch that. And the other thing you need to deal with is deal with the reciprocating problem, right? So if all I'm doing is catching it, and not applying any sort of forward pressure or driving in or like some
Hmm.
way to prevent him from stab. So like, yes, I blocked the first one. All right, I blocked the second one. All right, I blocked the third one. Oh, I didn't block the fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh one. Right? Like, if you're not dealing with the reciprocating problem, to me that's a warning sign. So you need some way of dealing with that. And I think there are a lot of nice systems that just like you put your hands on and I immediately catch his wrist on the first try. It's like I don't know, easier said than done for my pressure testing I've done and played around with.
Right.
That brings up a good point. In Tiga Tactics, we call the two most common stabs the psycho stab and the sewing machine, and that just by those names you kind of can tell that there is a reciprocating problem. Psycho stab obviously comes from the Psycho movie, where where the
Norman
Janet Leigh
Bates.
gets stabbed multiple times in the shower, and then sewing machine. Obviously, if anybody's ever seen a sewing machine, it just keeps puncturing over and over and over again. So a lot of, again, not to poo-poo Filipino martial arts because all three of us train in Filipino martial arts and we love it. Uh, but a lot of their responses is just simply all these very fancy, fine motor control type movements that don't work, or the simultaneous block punch or the wrist grab and into a wrist lock, that type of stuff. That obviously does not work under pressure because they're, especially unschooled people, they're going to constantly pull that knife back so they can stab again.
I was at a seminar. I'm not going to say which one it was. And one of the they were talking. We digressed into empty hand versus knife at one point, and one of them's like, he's like, "Yeah, I'll show you what to do." And he was a random student calls up, and he's like, "Go ahead and stab me." And he went like the dude goes and stabs him, and he hit him like he hit him, and the other guy he couldn't pull off the defense that he was like trying to teach us. And I was like, "You probably should have thought this out better, or used like use someone who's going to play along." Like it was like embarrassing. I was like, "Oh, this is not."
Oh,
You know, he's like, "Stab me," and it was the guy was just like, "Boop," and he poked him. He's like, "Oh, do it again," and he pokes him again. He's like, "All right, do it one more time," and I was like, "Oh." It's like, okay, so that works if I'm ready and I tell him when to stab me. I was like, yeah.
it's like that Jim Carrey stabbing skit there.
Yes.
Not like that.
Keep your arm totally straight.
If I remember, I'll drop a link down below for that skit. But in living color, Jim Carrey, it should be like knife defense or something. Should be on YouTube. All right, what else? What else we got to talk about related to knife defense?
So I'd like to talk about a few myths. I think we've brought up quite a few, like I'll just shoot them, or even knife disarms. That's kind of a myth-ish. But again, it's fun to train and train it. You never know when it presents itself. So just train it. Another myth might be kicking the knife out of someone's hands. I mean, I learned that in Taekwondo and I saw it in movies and I was like, this must work because I saw it in a movie. And it would take a lot of skills and a lot of I would say awareness, because again, it like what Patrick said, it happens in under 3 feet. They're closing that distance on you so fast. They'll probably crash through that kicking range pretty quickly. But never say never, right? But I think that's a very low percentage thing. But it looks great in the movies.
Yes, it does. Anybody who's done traditional martial arts has probably learned the crescent kick to the knife
Yes.
hand.
I was thinking of that right there.
It always works. It always works in class.
And in the movies.
And in the movies, that's right.
Never fails.
Yes.
Here's another one. And I first saw this in a kung fu book. And he takes off his shoes and uses that to defend himself against the knife. Anything wrong with that, Evan?
That's just like the belt one. It's like I'm about to get stabbed, and I'm like, hold on, and I take my belt off, and now my pants fall down. Like, how did I have time to take my belt off? How did I have time when I bent over to take my shoes? He's just gonna stab me in the top of the head. I don't know. Yeah, there's so many problems with it. Like, yes, use your environment. If you have a chair or something, we've seen videos of like people using chairs to pin their attacker and kind of like push them away. But again, that's a weapon of opportunity. That's not like I'm not taking off my belt and using that as a weapon. It's just you just won't have time. So
you're not undressing. You don't undress when you fight.
Yeah, I get completely naked before I fight. That's my technique. Yeah. So
I think another common myth out there, and there's truth to this, is that anything can happen. Anything can happen out there. So just be ready. Expect the unexpected. What do you guys think about that? Anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen, but what's probable? Like
Right.
I can't prepare for every single one. Again, I get it. Another seminar I went to. Again, I'm not going to name the seminar. Someone's like, "Well, what happens if he has 2 knives?" And you're like, "What?" And you're like, "What do you?" Again, has there been video of people with 2 knives? Yes, it has happened. Is it the common type of attack? It is not the common type of attack. It is one knife, right? What if he has a sword? It's like, again, that's not the common type of attack. And honestly, the club defense is going to look a little more. It's going to look a little more like the club defense. But yeah, anything can happen. Yes, that's true. But what is probable? We prepare for the problem and we stack odds in our favor.
Yeah.
I agree. And again, that anything can happen. Nothing wrong with that. That's a fun exploration. That's where the art comes in. And that's where you defend against angle 14 or angle 12 or whatever. And it's cool. It's cool. I mean, if you're training that as just, again, a personal growth journey, that's fine. That's cool. Just for me, I just personally put that into the cultural versus the martial, or the art versus the martial.
Yes, agreed. Strongly agree. Yeah. Patrick, any closing? Let's start wrapping up the knife stuff. Conrad, any other topics you
Yeah.
need to cover, or Patrick?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that one of the big reasons why we spend a lot of time teaching people how to defend themselves against a knife with their empty hands is because the large majority of instances you're going to be empty-handed. Even if you conceal carry a pistol or you carry a knife, or you have pepper spray or pen, flashlight, whatever, you're going to start empty-handed because you're not a cop on patrol, or you're not a soldier on patrol. You're not going to have a weapon in your hand when an attack happens. You're going to be empty-handed. So you number one got to deal with that threat, and as we've said before, it's going to happen very, very close, very, very fast. So you're going to be empty-handed. And it's going to happen a lot in terms of the type of weapon. Just quick stats from the FBI: an edge weapon is the number 2 most common weapon used in murders, and there are more than 130,000 aggravated assaults with knives in the U.S. Every year. So, understanding that it is common and it is used a lot, it's really important to know how to deal with it and get some experience with it, do some pressure testing, because it is a common one. Am I going to be attacked with a sword? Probably not. Am I going to be attacked by a bazooka? Probably not. But a knife, very likely. If I'm going to be attacked,
be attacked by someone with a bazooka or a sword. Anything's possible, Patrick.
Yes, anything can happen, Patrick.
That's true.
I love this one. Expect the unexpected. Excuse me, it's unexpected? How do I expect that? Expect the unexpected.
Right.
Second, how?
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other thing is there's a lot of we'll post on social media and we'll say you're mostly going to be empty-handed with a knife, so watch these videos and watch this CCTV footage. And we had one troll who said something along the lines of, "Dude, I can find a bunch of videos of knife on knife right now on YouTube." It's like we didn't say it never happens. We just say it's what's most likely going to happen. So
and
yes,
one of those knife on knife, there's 2 dudes agreeing to fight each other with knives.
Right? Yeah.
It's not like one person's attacking and the other person's like, "Well, I have my knife." It's like it's like gang violence, or like it's like, again, if you kind by choice, stay alert, stay humble, stay kind, you will avoid most of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then obviously that we're just mostly talking about United States, maybe Canada, but in other countries, the likelihood of being stabbed is even greater because there are no guns to worry about, and so they just a lot of these gangs carry knives. I know in London that's become a huge deal because guess what? They ban knives, and so what happens? More people get stabbed because the only people not carrying knives anymore are law-abiding citizens. But obviously the criminals know this, so they're going to carry more knives. And then obviously in other countries, other continents, you'll find knives are prevalent everywhere. So just an important topic to consider.
And I mean, every home has lots of knives, not just because you're a weirdo like me and collect them. Like your steak knives, right? Those are all weapons of opportunity that are, I mean, how many knives are in America? It's probably some absurd amount. It's probably like 100 for every one person or something insane. When I was looking at those 50 knife attacks, I specifically wanted to focus on America, and I had to go so deep because like every other one was a UK one. It kept being UK, America, UK, America, like back and forth. and I was searching from America, so I assume there's a natural bias for me to get more American hits. But it was just so many in the UK. Yeah, crazy stuff.
Scary.
Any other closing thoughts before we final shout outs?
Oh yeah, just one last thought. We talked a lot about Tiga tactics. It's just a great starting point, a great foundation for if you're a traditional martial artist, or if you're part of police or military and you're doing some old school training stuff. You know, Tiga tactics is a great thing to add to your school, to add to your program, because it'll modernize your knife defense, or whatever you're looking for, club defense or punch defense, ground defense as well too. So it's a process, and at the same time, it's not a system. It's just a process of training, and we add in techniques in there because we need to teach technique. But at the end of the day, it's a process. And what Evan, the way you describe it, the tip of the spear, I like that, because the tip of the spear, I consider that's for me Tiga tactics as well too. Someone asked, "Oh, what would you use to defend yourself?" Yeah, I would start with Tiga tactics, so that my process is limited, like what you mentioned, Hicks law, and then the rest of all my other training helps to support all that. So, tip of the spear thing from you. Of course, the tip of the spear is a very small part of the spear. It's that's why it's so effective. It's very small. It's the business and so if you want a big spear, you got to train a bunch of other arts as well, just like we all do.
Yeah, I mean, if you only do Tiga tactics, you can still cut someone with it, right? Because it's a little you have literally the tip of the spear.
Mhm.
But it's obviously better if that is supported with pressure testing in combat sports and other arts, that it creates the full head, and then obviously the shaft that you can keep it at somewhat at distance, right? If you want to continue down that analogy rabbit hole, but
Right.
yeah, agreed. Obviously, since it was the way I described it.
It's a great one.
All right, Patrick, any closing thoughts on knife, and then final shout outs of upcoming things people need to be aware of.
Just keep training. Train hard, train often. You know, statistically, are you likely to be stabbed? It's pretty low, but it's never zero. So that's my final thought on knife attack against empty hand. And then in
Side
terms
note:
of shout outs, I'm sorry.
if you live in the Northeast, also the probability is a lot higher. Again, the ones I looked at, if they weren't in the UK, it was like New York was like right up there, and then other major cities in the Northeast. So, just a heads up. Go for it, Patrick.
And speaking of knife defense, we will be teaching. That will be a part of one of our upcoming seminars, our tool set and skill set seminar. It's going to happen in Conway, New Hampshire on June 13th and 14th. So it's going to be an epic 2-day event. We're going to talk about this very subject. You're going to get hands-on training. You can train with us in person. And then we're also going to explain, once you've gone through the PRO, you protect yourself, your position, you unleash some of your offense. Now you can create the space to draw your own improvised tool, whether you're carrying a pen, flashlight, or your own knife. And so, hands-on, fun, safe, effective training. Come join us in New Hampshire.
We'll drop the link down below. Again, that's June 13th, 14th in Conway, New Hampshire. Toolset and skill set seminar. Myself, Dr. Conrad, and Dr. Scott Sobel will all be in attendance teaching that weekend.
That's going to be a lot of fun. So that's East Coast. And then in July, we go to the West Coast. July 18th and 19th, we have Tiga Tactics over in San Francisco, or tool set training tours. So come and join us for that if you're on the West Coast.
I will be at that one as well. San Francisco. Looking forward to that one. And then in August, we have Dragon Fest. If you want to step back to 1992 and enjoy the martial arts world. So seriously, it's a lot of fun. I'm really excited for that as well. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to drop a bunch of links down below. If you are interested in learning Medusa, when is this coming out? I don't know. My Patreon page, I just started like a reteach of Medusa. If anyone wants to jump on, just shoot me a message on Instagram or head over to my Patreon page, link down below, and we can get you hooked up with that. And yeah.
I want to mention something about that too. I just, right before our podcast, I was joining Evan on that Medusa class. And so, you can become an instructor in Medusa under Evan. So if you want to teach this as part of your program, maybe you do FMA and you want to kind of teach a little more knife stuff, you can become an instructor in Medusa. Is that right, Evan?
That is right. Yeah. What I like about Medusa and Tiga Tactics is it doesn't, like we were talking about, it's not replacing your art. It's just adding like a specific point to it, right? So it's not you're not like, oh, I can't do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai anymore because I do Medusa. It's like that's not a thing. Or Tiga Tactics, right? Like that's just a skill that you kind of latch onto your pre-existing martial art. So I think they're worth checking out. And if you read my Unbladed Combatives book, you know the 3 systems that I think have the purest form of bladed combatives are Tiga Tactics, Medusa, and then Shivworks, in my personal opinion. So those are the 3 I recommend if you're interested less in art and more interested in just pure combatives. What do I need to know for knife offense? Those are the systems I recommend. And if you're looking for knife defense, again, Tiga Tactics, Shivworks. Those are my first 2 recommendations. KCC would be 3.
Awesome.
All right. We'll catch you all in the next episode.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you and have a good night.